Okay, well, it's Wednesday, 13 March, year of our Lord, 2024. So much going on today, but I asked, and she's been able to carve some time out, Congressman Boebert. So, Congressman Boebert, you have the War Room Posse has your back, and you're a beloved figure because you're a fighter and you will not back down. But people are totally confused by what in the hell's going on in Colorado. Well, what has Congressman Buck done? And Congressman Buck, look, he's a never Trump guy. He's good on the budget. He's terrible on some other things. But overall, I think people have always seen him as kind of a good guy, right? He didn't vote a lot with us on key issues, but he's a reasonable guy. People are confused. What in the hell's going on out in Colorado, ma'am?
Yeah, so I won't talk too much about Ken Buck. You know, he's done what he's done. He said he wasn't running for re-election. He is now resigning on March 22nd. And, you know, this was a wonderful gift to the Uniparty by Ken Buck. And, you know, you say he's fiscally responsible. And while I agree to some extent, but also refusing to hold Secretary Mayorkas or Joe Biden accountable for what's happening at the border, I don't think that that's very fiscally responsible. I mean, we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars in my state of Colorado alone on illegal aliens. So it's not really the fiscal responsible position to take to not hold them accountable for the invasion that's taking place. But yesterday, Ken Buck's announcement to resign was a gift to the Uniparty and the establishment. They concocted a swampy backroom deal to try to rig an election that I'm winning by 25 points. I know a rigged election when I see one, and that's exactly what we're looking at here. This will force an unnecessary special election on the same day, June 25th, as the primary election in Colorado. And this is going to confuse voters, and it will result in a lame duck congressman on day one and leave the 4th district with zero representation for more than 3 months. The 4th District of Colorado deserves much better. And as far as what I am doing in this, I will not further impale the already very slim House Republican majority by resigning my current seat. And I will continue to deliver on my constituents' priorities while also working to earn the votes of the voters in Colorado's 4th District, who have made very, very clear that they are hungry for a real conservative. And I'm the only Trump-endorsed candidate, the only America First candidate in this race. And so I will continue with the primary election on June 25th. I will win that election, especially with the posse's help. And, you know, I'm looking forward to that. And then the general election and serving alongside President Trump. But Steve, this is a backroom deal by the Uniparty to try to hinder my chances at remaining in office and winning this election. They want to prop up their Ukraine first candidate in a special election. It's a vacancy committee who selects the nominee for the special election. So the general voting population don't even get a say in who is going to represent them for the remainder of the year. This is so frustrating. And when I am in office serving in the 4th District, I'm going to make sure that we get these laws fixed in Colorado so this never happens again. This is pretty unprecedented, but it causes a ton of confusion.
Hang on a second. You're up, and I've seen the polling. You're up, yeah. I don't know, 20, 25, some argue 30 points. Everybody else was under single digits. You know, the War Room has a vast audience in that district, and you're on the show all the time, right? And we profile you all the time because you're a fighter, and you're with President Trump, and President Trump's endorsed you. So yes. I don't understand it. They're going to run a primary on the same day as they're doing this special, and whoever wins this special can't run against you as an incumbent because they're already going to be, the primary's already held, but they're going to be in Congress for 3.5 months, of which half of the time Congress is going to be out campaigning for the 2024 election. This is so screwball that nobody can understand it. Why are they doing this?
What they can do, and what I believe is the establishment party's, the establishment's intent, is one of my 10 opponents in this primary race can be nominated for the special election. And then they can run in both the special election and the primary election. So they would have the ability to double fundraising, have two different accounts where they're raising campaign donations into, and also gain that runway and be able to tout that they're the nominee and all of this stuff. I'm the chosen one. I'm not participating in their special election. I am not offering my name as an option. I'm not leaving my constituents in the 3rd district. I'm not triggering a second special election in the 3rd district. I am remaining as the Congresswoman in Colorado 3, and I am going to win this primary. But this is why I need the posse's help. This is why I need everyone's help, because they are going to start pouring money into their chosen candidate. And this will be a very establishment Ukraine first candidate that they are picking up. You can see the endorsements behind the Uniparty and many of the vacancy committee members already. You have former Senator Cory Gardner, who has endorsed a Ukraine opponent, Ukraine first opponent of mine. And, Ken Buck is good friends with him, and their fundraisers all work together. And so this is already setting the stage for one of my opponents to run in both elections. And that's why I need the grassroots to help me so they don't get any runway. We expose their this concoction that they came up with. We expose that they are rigging an election, and we win the primary. They could have their special election, whatever. Ken Buck screwed the 4th district. So sorry about that. Very selfish. But I'm going to win the primary and actively work to serve Eastern Colorado and represent them in the next Congress.
Is this the cartel that controls the imperial capital of Washington, D.C.? Is this part of McCarthy's revenge tour? You're one of the people that stood up and said, hey, we can't continue to do this. You stood up against the debt ceiling deal that's destroying the country. Is this part of the way to see this is really his revenge tour?
I haven't seen McCarthy's prints on this, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised. But this is your typical statewide uniparties. You have consultants that think that they're important and they're the best consultants in the state and haven't won anything in their last 20 elections, in their last 20 campaigns that they've consulted for and managed. But these are people who think higher of themselves than they ought. They think that they are smarter than the general electorate. They think that they know more than the average voter, and that if we just do things their way, then everything will be fine. But we know better than that. We know that it's the America First agenda that works. Those who partner with President Trump and help promote his agenda, that is the policy. Those are the policies that work for America. And we're going to expose them trying to rig this primary election every step of the way.
By the way, people in Colorado 4, as soon as it dawns on people what exactly is going on here, this will be rejected out of hand. This is treating the voters in Colorado 4 like they're idiots. This is what it's doing. It's actually smearing the good folks out there, and they're too smart. These folks are very smart, so this is not going to happen. So what's the call to action? Where do people go to immerse themselves on information here, find out more about this, and figure out how they can support you?
Yes. So, Steve, the posse can go to laurenforfreedom.com. Follow me on Rumble. Follow me on X. We are continuously putting out information. Go to my website, laurenforfreedom.com. I have lots of information there. You can invest in the campaign, partner with us, and I invite you to join us in this fight against the establishment. I have a lot of things that I'm working on. Look, I just announced that I was partnering with the state GOP party to recall our Secretary of State, who was adamantly opposed to the 9/0 ruling to keep President Trump on the ballot. And so this is an effort that I'm working on in Colorado, and this special election is another distraction to silence the grassroots, to end any movement or engagement that we have. And so we have to make sure that that momentum continues. So laurenforfreedom.com. And the state party chairman, he's running for Congress as well in Colorado's 5th district, and that borders the 4th. He's kind of wrapped in it, and that's Dave Williams. And yesterday, President Trump endorsed him So we know that the establishment is furious that President Trump is starting to roll out endorsements in Colorado and get behind MAGA candidates, America First candidates, and they will do anything to stop that. These never Trumpers and these swampy hacks, they have their claws in this, and they think they were smart, and I'll give it to them as a little creative, but we're not participating in it. We're not engaging in the special election. Have your Ukraine First candidate, and we'll win the primary.
No. It's demeaning to the people out there. It's demeaning because the money spent, all this, it's demeaning. This is an outrage. Let's be blunt. This is the kind of games they're trying to play. There's no time for games. The country's in the balance. There's no time for games. This is why people hate politics. This is why the average citizen that just wants to live their life, pay their taxes, this is what they hate about it. It's always gamesmanship, and this is a perfect example. We'll have you back on. I want to talk about Griswold.
Confusion, Steve, right? Who is the author of confusion? Right? We have an enemy out there.
Boom.
Yes. We have an enemy, and he is the author of confusion. And this is a strategy to confuse the voters. But I need to make sure that I have the resources to inform them, to get into their homes, to communicate with them what's actually going on, so they know the truth.
Congressman Boebert, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to have you back talking about Griswold. We're on offense in Texas. We're on offense in Wisconsin. We're on offense in Georgia. It's time to continue our offense against this fiasco in Colorado. Thank you, ma'am. Huge day about CCP. We had Anna Paulina Luna on the morning show. You had the big TikTok vote, getting punched in the mouth. The CCP is. Josh Philipp from the great Epoch Times, the best broadsheet newspaper in the nation, and there's no runner-up. New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, LA Times, Chicago Tribune, nothing. The best broadsheet in the country is the Epoch Times. Josh, I want to talk about, you saw the CCP vote, the anti-CCP vote in TikTok. Anna Paulina comes up there, all kind of other legislation coming up about agriculture and all of it. But I want to have you on here, an investigative report about how they're trying to destroy every day, the great civilization of China, the Lao Beijing, to really take their culture away, to take their civilization away. There's a great opportunity for people to support real Chinese culture and civilization that's coming to the United States in a magnificent artistic endeavor. Walk me through, walk our audience through what's going on.
Yeah, so the Chinese Communist Party, its agents, have been trying to stop an American performing arts company from being able to perform. And the reason they're trying to stop this American performing arts company is because this one, Shen Yun, is trying to revive the culture the Chinese Communist Party destroyed. And so I've been investigating a lot of the interference from the Chinese consulates, the Chinese embassies, Chinese special agents, I mean, the whole 9 yards, who are using every means in the book. Harassment. We just had a case. In fact, I'm heading to Chicago later today. We just had a case in Chicago I'm going to investigate. A Customs and Border Patrol agent of our own government, right, CBP, stopped Shen Yun and tried preventing them from entering the United States. The guy who stopped him, working for Customs and Border Protection, he was speaking with a heavy Mandarin accent. The guy was Chinese, and he was trying, it seems, to enforce Chinese law in America, because he was stopping Shen Yun, and he says, "Oh, you're political," right? That's one of the narratives the CCP uses. Oh, you're political. Why are they political? Because they're standing up against Chinese communism, and they're trying to bring back the culture of ancient traditional Chinese dance and so on, that the CCP did everything it could to wipe out. And then he said, "Oh, you're Falun Gong," because many people who are with Shen Yun are, Falun Gong practitioners. And using these narratives, by the way, it's not illegal in America. It's illegal in China, where you can have your organs harvested if you practice Falun Dafa, where you can be thrown in the gulag if you, act politically, if you criticize the CCP. But that's not illegal in America. And a guy with Customs and Border Protection tried using the Chinese system of law to prevent an American performing arts company from returning to the United States from their tour. And we're seeing this all around the world. I was just in Korea, Steve, same thing happening there. The CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, we have the letter from their embassy. They were threatening Korea with just huge financial damage if they allow Shen Yun to even perform in the entire country. And so, the CCP is desperately trying to stop it.
Hang on a second. One of the arguments I make all the time, the reason I'm fully sanctioned by the Chinese Communist Party in every aspect of life, is that I say this is one of not the most ancient civilization we have. And the world is prepared to accept a dictatorship of an illegitimate regime that was put in basically by globalists in the 1940s and then saved in Tiananmen Square by the Bush junta in this country and others when they should have been driven out by the heroic patriots in Tiananmen Square that put up the goddess of democracy. But this ancient civilization is what's so amazing. How can people in the world sit there with this ancient civilization and let it be ruled by Nazi-like dictators? But from the CCP's point of view, what I don't understand, why are they trying to suppress Chinese culture? Because this dance company, the dance is so magnificent. People come out of there with this fantastic feeling to the Chinese people and to Chinese civilization. Why is the CCP trying to suppress that?
So when the Chinese Communist Party took over in China, one of the very first things they did was destroyed Chinese traditional culture. They had the Cultural Revolution. Mao Zedong himself put his wife in charge of the program to eliminate dance. And the reason was this: traditional Chinese culture is absolutely antithetical to Chinese communism. It's rooted, for example, in respect for your parents. It's rooted, for example, as you mentioned, in 5,000 years of history. It's rooted in values that don't work with communism. And so they made a campaign to destroy the four olds, right? Old ideas, old culture, old values, and everything. The CCP systematically wiped out the religion, the cultural foundations, the beliefs, everything that represented what China was, and then replaced it with this atheistic, totalitarian, evil system. And so Chinese people who've wanted to keep that culture that was destroyed, many of them, of course, left the country. That's why you have a lot of Chinese Americans who are some of the strongest patriots you'll find. I know you, Steve, I know that, of course, you've really stood up for a lot of them as well. And, I will say that if you're blacklisted by the CCP, that's like the modern Nobel Peace Prize. It means you're doing something right. And so Chinese Americans who stand against communism and know what America faces when we're looking at cultural revolutions happening on our streets right now, they've lived through it. They are actively trying to bring back that which was destroyed. And of course, Shen Yun represents the restoration of the moral fabric that is at the heart of Chinese traditional dance, and the idea that inner beauty is reflected through the dance form of the artists. And so it's a system of dance that you don't see anymore. They're reviving it, and this Chinese Communist Party, ironically, recognizes this as a threat to its power. They try to stop it everywhere. In fact, there's over 100 documented cases in 30 countries where Chinese agents have tried stopping the show.
Josh, where do people go? And this is why I want people to go see this dance company. I really want you to support this, and here's why. You will understand as the Marxists in Beijing need to destroy what they call the four olds, right? And Mao's wife, the white bone devil, was put in charge of doing this in the Cultural Revolution. They need to destroy traditional society. That's exactly what's happening here in this country. This is why so many Lao Beijing that come to America say their fear is that what is happening in America is what happened in China. You can see exactly how the Marxists, the atheistic Marxists, are coming after the traditional customs, the traditional family, the traditional way of doing things. They hate tradition. They hate that people are grounded in a civilization, because in these demons, right, don't want you to have a civilization. They don't want to have you. They want you to worship the party. And it just what happened in China is happening here in the United States. Josh, where do people go? Your investigative reporter plus the Epoch Times. I'd love people to subscribe to it. It's amazing. You guys are the best broadsheet in the country. Where do they go to get you, your social media, all your articles?
They can go to epochtv.com for my show, and then, of course, the Epoch Times, TheEpochTimes.com.
And do we have a link? I want to make sure people go to the website. If it's coming to your city or town, do not miss this. You'll come out of this with a great appreciation of the human spirit. And it's absolutely magnificent. Is there somewhere on Epoch Times you can link through to actually the dance company's website?
Shen Yun Performing Arts. Shen Yun Performing Arts. SHENYUN.
Fantastic. We'll push it up. We'll get it out and push it. Thank you so much, brother.
Great. Hey, thank you, Steve. Good work as always, too. Thank you.
Thanks, brother. Now, the exact opposite in England, Peter Mcilvenna joins us. So, Peter, I'm very concerned about our mother country, and I'm very concerned about the rise of kind of radical Sharia supremacist Islam. It's taking place in this pro-Palestinian movement. I make the case here all the time. The pro-Palestinian movement in this country is an anti-American. In fact, I think it's the most vicious anti-Judeo-Christian West movement ever. I think it's the most vicious anti-American movement ever. And I just point to England about what's going on. Now, you've had a member of Commons that was bounced out by the Tory party. He's now joined the Reform Party. George Galloway, who's even more, he's not an anti-Semite. I would actually say that he's a Jew hater, is now in Commons, elected in an area that was one of the no-go zones. You've had these protests that the police are too afraid to shut down. Let's be blunt. It's about fear. What is going on in the United Kingdom about this? Because it's only going to get worse. As the red line in Gaza, Biden's not going to be able to stop Bibi and these guys from going into Rafah and taking out those battalions of hardcore Hamas fighters. It's only going to get worse. So walk me through what's happening in the United Kingdom today and what's the direction of this thing.
Okay, well, to separate those two huge events, George Galloway, who, as you say, Steve, is pure anti-Israel, probably hates Israel, not just pro-Palestine. He was elected on a by-election, huge shockwaves in the UK because we don't have independent candidates. And he stood as an independent candidate, completely destroyed Labour, our socialist party, or more socialist than the Tory party, that are slightly socialist. But George Galloway defeated them. George Galloway is a interesting figure on the political scene in the UK. Nigel campaigned with him on Brexit because they aligned on that issue, but he is so aggressively anti-Israel. So he got voted in, and he got voted in on a pro-Palestine, pro-Gaza, pro-Hamas agenda. And on his speech, whenever he got elected 10 days ago, he said, "This is for Gaza." That was his line. So you've got George Galloway, the first time we've seen, just like you have Michigan, Steve, that Muslim bloc vote that had appeared in the UK in Rochdale, which is the grooming gang capital in the UK. So a lot of these things coming together, complete blind eye turned by our authorities to the grooming gangs, and complete silence in our Islamic communities to those grooming gang centres. So George Galloway gets in. Then Lee Anderson. Lee Anderson was the deputy chairman of the Tory party. I cannot stress how regarded, how respected, how high up he was in the Tory party. He said that Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, was captured by Islamist forces. Completely correct. When you see the pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine demonstrations, the police, hands off, do not touch them, do not get involved. So it is true. And the police are under the power of the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, Muslim mayor of London. So they turn a blind eye to these demonstrations going through London. They've turned London into a no-go area for our Jewish community. So Lee Anderson is punished by the Tory party for calling out what it is in London. He was suspended by the Tory party, and then he moves over to Reform. And I think yesterday he went to take a seat, ironically, beside George Galloway. It's kind of the naughty corner in the House of Commons. So George Galloway and Lee Anderson are sitting together, opposite of opinion on everything, but he joins Reform, and that's a massive boost for Reform.
But this ties to Michigan. This is going to be a revolution in British politics. It's been years in the making, and Raheem wrote the No-Go book. We covered the grooming gangs at Breitbart relentlessly. We're the ones that broke it, that the BBC was saying wouldn't even admit they were Muslims, and they said, oh, they're Asians, and they say they're South Asians, and eventually, that they're Pakistani men. Also, Galloway, people got to understand, Galloway is one of the best public speakers, I think, in the world. He's maybe lost a step or two. He's getting older, but this guy's a brilliant orator. He will light up Commons. And you're right, Lee Anderson is in a party of pencil necks and weaklings. Anderson was a force. And they bounced him for just this one comment, which happens to be true. It's obvious by what's happened in London and these protests that they're letting go. The cops are afraid, but the mayor and the officials are looking the other way. I tell you, Peter, can you just hang on? I want to just bring you back through the break because this is coming to the United States. I keep saying what happened in Minnesota with the concentration of the Somali vote. This is in the Democratic primary with so many voting non-committed or uncommitted. Also in Michigan, the terrible turnout where I think Nikki Haley got more votes than the entire Democrat slate when they had a sitting president, and what really is still a Democratic state that trends MAGA, but still a Democratic state when you talk about registrations and all that. So this is I think what's happening in the UK is what's going to be forecast, I think, here for the United States, this pro-Palestinian movement. It blocked the Oscars the other night. It's blocking New York City. The mainstream media won't report a lot of this. So we're going to get back to Peter. We also have Darrem, Beattie, and I've got our own Ben Harnwell. So we're pretty jammed today. I want to make sure everybody, times of turbulence, you ain't seen nothing yet. Times of turbulence, you need a financial hedge. That would be gold. Precious metals has been a hedge against times of turbulence for, 6, 7, 8,000 years. Don't take it from me. Go to birchgold.com/Bannon right now. That's the promo code Bannon. Talk to Philipp, Patrick, and the team. Find out from them these converging forces that are driving gold up to all-time highs every couple of days. birchgold.com/Bannon. Check it out today. Stick around. Beattie, Harnwell, Peter Mcilvenna next in the world. All this nonsense, all this spin, they can't handle the truth.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, Peter Mcilvenna joins us, Heart of Oaks. Peter, with everything that's going on in England, and one of the reasons we keep a close track on British politics, not just for our UK audience, but also because it's a harbinger of what's going to come to the Rhino Republican Party as you see the collapse of the Tories right now. But here, you got to help me out here. And we only got a couple of minutes. Why is this? And I'm an Irishman of Irish descent, and I'm a Republican. I've never been a big name on monarchy anywhere, right? Why is the British press over and over again so obsessed with these stories on the royal family and the photo and the Photoshop and bing, ba-bang, all of that, when you've got so many massive things that are happening in the United Kingdom? Number one is you're becoming a third world country as far as your economy goes. It is so frightening what's happened to the British economy, and I mean the underlying productive nature of the British economy for the British people. It is shocking what's happening, particularly with your leaders talking about the Ukraine all the time. We're in the Red Sea with 2 carrier battle groups. You're sending 1 frigate. The difference in reality of what's really happening in the world and what I see in the British press of what they follow is the most shocking, disparate nature of anywhere, including the United States, sir.
Well, it's a full-on psyop, and Steve, we've seen this over the last couple of years where the media deflect our attention to a picture and everything else is ignored. So we are having hate speech laws coming in Scotland, 1st of April. That will end free speech in Scotland 100%. We have an armed forces that have zero capacity, and we can barely muster up, we can't muster up any of our aircraft carriers really because we don't have the sailors or the aircraft. We have economy in the doldrums, and we are slipping down that world scale, and we are no longer a global leader in any capacity. We don't have that military force to put in. So, well, that's because we sent all our weapons to Ukraine. But now we're having a Gaza first policy, and it's interesting watching the confusion in our media and our confusion in our politicians, because we have always been pro-Israel compared to the rest of Europe, and we are seeing that pushed aside. So we have an existential crisis in the UK, I think. What does it mean to be British? What do British values mean? And British values now mean respect and tolerance. And tolerance means acquiescence to any other ideology that steps into that vacuum. And that's what we are seeing, a confusion of what it actually means to be British. And into that, we have every other ideology. And sadly, into that, we have not only the woke agenda, agenda, but we have the Islam agenda, and it's utter confusion here in the UK. And the media are focusing everywhere else, and our police don't know what to do with the demonstrations that are happening. And into that, we're going to have an election later on this year. So we are in confusing times here in the UK, and the general election later this year is not going to really solve the issue we have.
Peter, you're a voice of reason over there. Tell us, where do people get the podcast? We put it up on our Getter and Rumble every day. Tell people where they go for the podcast, where they go for your social media.
So heartsofoak.org or Hearts of Oak UK on Twitter. And on Monday, we had Billboard Chris, a fantastic voice against the attack on children, on the trans agenda, on the puberty blockers. We've seen a massive victory here in the UK 2 days ago where that has now been banned. So you can get our programs every Monday, Thursday and Saturday.
Peter, just amazing. Hearts of Oak, thank you so much. We're so honored to be able to stream it. We've got a vast audience over here, really taking track. So thanks you so much.
Thanks, Steve.
Darren, we had the vote today on TikTok, but you had a piece up, and I thought it was the most compelling piece of all, and you were arguing against voting for this TikTok ban. But it was the rest of and it was a piece that you re-put up. You'd had it up a while ago, I think a year ago or 9 months ago. It was so compelling, not just about Google. You talked about not focusing on like the CCP's industrial apparatus they have on information. Walk me through it, because I said of everything I read, that was, and you know me, I'm a hard anti-CCP guy. As Beattie accuses me of, under every bed I'll find a CCP bad guy. But this article was amazingly impressive. What was your point in it?
Well, thank you. Yes, as you point out, this piece is rather old, but it's still as timely as ever, and I thought it would be the right occasion to re-up it, as it were. Its title is pretty suggestive. It is, "While the GOP focuses on TikTok, Google prepares to devour everyone whole." And a lot of the arguments made here are perfectly relevant to the new version that attempts to effectively ban TikTok. Technically, it's a divestment requirement, but in practice, it amounts to a ban unless there's some American company in waiting, eager to pick TikTok for pennies on the dollar as a result of this divestment requirement. But basically what I've seen is the structure, a lot of this hostility toward TikTok. The bird's eye view is, I think it largely functions as a distraction from larger threats from big tech. I think it is very safe and sound to say that Google is the preeminent threat coming from big tech and the whole panoply of American companies. Now, of course, you can kill two birds with one stone, but I think the way things work is often TikTok, a focus on TikTok and the foreign element and so forth, really kind of functions as a consolation prize for the fact that politicians are not really willing or capable of tackling the big fight, which is the fight against Google and the fight against other major U.S. tech companies. And part of the reason for that is tech companies like Google are at the end of the day soft power assets for the American empire geopolitically. Like we're talking about the TikTok ban here, I think it's a good occasion to remind ourselves that China actually bans Google in China. And I think that's a very wise decision. So then the question is, why wouldn't it be geopolitically wise to reciprocate and ban TikTok? I think that's actually a very attractive dimension. It's the problem with what are the downstream costs of it. The first attempt to ban TikTok was called the Restrict Act, and it was basically gave the Secretary of Commerce power to restrict any tech company that Congress or the Department of Commerce deems a national security threat. Now, what has been the major theme throughout, basically ever since Trump emerged on the political scene? Russia, Russia, Russia. Anyone who's been paying attention to politics has seen that the key move of the left and the Democrats has been to frame the democratic threat of populism to their power as an outside foreign adversary threat. That is the game. That is the game that serves as the pretext enabling the Democrats and the deep state to marshal the full weight and force of the security apparatus for domestic political purposes. So I think anything that empowers the government to consolidate that or even intensify and expand that, I don't think is really worth it. And I think that's the key thing that you can see certain elements to translate into this latest attempt against TikTok. So two main reasons
don't we have but don't we have the opportunity now, because the DHS budget, I said this in the morning show, we had Alex Jones on too, the DHS budget is going to be a confrontation for the second part of the funding of the government. Isn't now the time for the civil libertarians and the anti-CCP element and the anti-deep state element to force a showdown now? Not just on the border, that's my number one thing, but to force it on this entire apparatus. That entire budget is still funded with Google. You got all these, as you guys, Revolver have been the best of exposing all these different groups working together, private-public partnerships. It's rife with, it's all in the budget, and the taxpayers, it's the Greek tragedy. The people it's suppressing are paying for it. Now's our time to do it. Would you be open to that?
Absolutely, yes. And come to think of it, I point out the focus on TikTok, specifically this approach to going after TikTok. Narratively, it functions as a distraction, as a consolation prize for not being able to go after the big U.S. tech companies, which are by far the most censorious, which are by far the most damaging to our discursive environment in the United States. And in fact, even in TikTok, the censorship that you do see happening, overwhelmingly, it's the case that the censorship is actually happening not at the behest of the Chinese, who don't particularly care, if Andrew Tate is on the platform or any of these other figures that offend feminists and so forth. The censorship that occurs on American TikTok is largely driven to appease American sensitivities, the American sensitivities, at least of the ruling class. So I think that's often lost. And I'll say, on the other hand, these attempts at TikTok at times and in many ways function as a consolation prize for not having a truly robust program to go after Chinese influence on American tech. So it's actually kind of a consolation prize on both sides. And as evidence for that, it's worth noting that Biden and many Democrats are fully in support of this latest TikTok bill. And so you have to decide, is Biden all of a sudden, somebody who really wants to deal this death blow to China's influence in the tech? Or is it not really a threat to China's influence in tech, and it's more of a consolation prize on that hand too, and they just want a Trojan horse to kind of normalize and set a precedent for, okay, we can establish major regulation against tech companies, and next on the chopping block is, X perhaps, or some other company that they don't like because it's not sufficiently censorious to their taste.
Well, they hate, they hate Elon Musk and they hate X, there's no doubt. Where do people go? Revolver's doing the heaviest lifting of all in a quite complex topic, but you guys have been the cutting edge of this. Where do people go to find out more and Revolver, more articles, and also how they follow you on social media?
Revolver.news. We're at the cutting edge of many things. Everybody's talking about the airplane issue in the aftermath of our major study of the FAA. So if you want to be on the cutting edge, revolver.news. I'm on Twitter at Darren J. Beattie. We're very hot on Getter at Revolver News.
Yeah. No. I'm going to have you back on. Yours was much more profound than just that. You said we are a nation in an industrial and post-industrial economy that's based upon the interconnectivity of complex systems. Because of DEI and others, you're going to start seeing massive failures. I'm telling you, it's one of the most important pieces. Please put it back up at the top. That initial thing, you said complex systems are going to start to collapse in this country, and we're going to be facing things that people, quite frankly, in this country haven't had to face since the steam engine. Even at their time, the United States was always genius about building complex systems on the technology that was available at the times, and you're seeing the collapse of that. So, Beattie, fantastic work. Make sure everybody goes to the Revolver and see it, read it. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Great work. Ben, I got 8 minutes. I want to get into this article about our gladiator school, but I know that you've got some comments and observations about Peter's comments about the United Kingdom. Your thoughts, sir?
Yes, Steve, good evening to you. So firstly, I just want to come with an idea to the War Room posse about these puberty blockers for kids. As horrific as that idea actually sounds, I don't mean to be facetious, Steve, but I don't think there's anything new with the idea of giving testosterone suppressants to people, to kids especially. If you look at the GOP in the Congress, GOP in the Senate, the British Tories in the House of Commons, Tories in the House of Lords, put all the men together, I don't think they can boast a single pair of stones between a lot of them. So that's because I don't think they've had a single molecule of testosterone coursing in their blood in their entire lives. I tell you where there is. I tell you, however, where you are going to find some fighting spirit, Steve. You know where that's going to be, don't you? It's going to be at the Academy for the Judeo-Christian West. Now, there's a great article in the European Conservative. It's on the top of my Getter feed. I'll have it on the Rumble, and Steve, I think you'll push it out as well. Now, just raise some. Look, I'd love to point everyone to click on this article, because it does cover a lot of background information which we haven't been able to go into on the show. There is a very important point here that's raised in this article, and I think this is going to be the one that's going to occupy forthcoming attention. I want to underline this point because I know, because I've been reading the comments, and people have been researching this project. It's on fire. People want to know more about it. And here's the thing, right? And this isn't particularly clear in the media write-up on any direction up until now. Steve, when the culture of ministry, the Ministry of Culture in Italy, when they evicted us and they kicked us out, I want to underline a point. I had not been, not then, certainly not now, since I was vindicated in the criminal court last week. I have, the Dignitatis Humanae Institute, the landlord of the leaseholder of the monastery. We had not been, Steve, this is so important, we had not been convicted of any wrongdoing in any court. It was a unilateral, politically motivated eviction because the left did not want these arguments that we're promoting to be defunded, to be diffused in Italy. And the reason they didn't want that is because they don't have any response to them. Now, I would like to just quickly say one thing, Steve. I've never seen, I've always read every single comment that's ever been posted on my feed on Getter. I have not seen a reaction to anything like to the news that our academy is going ahead. People want to know more information. I'll be on this show constantly, Steve. We'll have a website. There is a website, which is the DHI's website, but I won't point people towards that to register for more information. There's a lot of people saying we want more details. Can we participate online? How can we go? All of that stuff is going to be worked out. And please continue to watch the War Room. It'll be on warroom.org, obviously, when we have further news.
I will say that I have a team already that's gone around the West, and we are going to have, like we had the force multiplier that people went to at CPAC was a module of the Academy of the Judeo-Christian West. It was a module of how we would do training, or it was just a taste, an appetizer, how we would do training. Different modules like that we're going to do in Arizona, in Nevada, in Colorado, in Texas, and in California. We've already had preliminary meetings. We're just trying to get my crazy schedule because I want to be at every one. We are also sending a team to Europe to join Ben Harnwell in late April and begin more advanced discussions with people in Europe about actually doing the same thing in Europe. And at the same time, we're looking for a permanent home and headquarters of it. Of course, we're always open to Trasalti. It's a tragedy of what happened to the local community. Ben, it would have been so enervating and energizing to the local community to have the school there, the capital improvements we're going to make, the faculty, the students for the little town that's there. But, remember, in Italy and in Europe, this is one of the reasons we're so against the European Union is that democracy doesn't really flourish. It's really an administrative or deep state. And this is the reality you have to face. And this is what we saw in Italy. And I'm so proud of Ben Harnwell, even when, it's like Navarro, even when challenged or threatened with prison time in an Italian prison, Harnwell said, no way, we didn't do anything wrong. We're going to fight this to the bitter end. And I think that's the lesson to take away. But we are actively already pursuing different modules to test here in the United States. We're going to have a team in Europe. We'll announce that more in the coming weeks to join Ben Harnwell. Ben, where can people go? Because this story is still exploding. There's going to be many more developments on it. Where do people go to follow you? And I've got to have you back on either Thursday or Friday. Just talk about Ukraine because there's so much stuff blowing up there. And there's now a discharge petition that's not getting total traction, but they're still trying to force the $60 billion. So we got to have you back on Ukraine. Where do people go to get all the content you're putting up?
Thanks, Steve. Getter, my social media platform of choice. Simply search out my surname, Harnwell, at Harnwell. And the links for the article that I mentioned today will be there on that feed. And I very strongly recommend the War Room Posse to check that out and to study and spread the article if you would be so kind. Thank you so much, Steve. God bless.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for staying up. Two things here. If you like the talks look, we had some great people on today about geopolitics on the morning show and the afternoon show. If you like that, if you're just getting a taste of that now and you want to find out more, Jim Rickards, who's a regular contributor now, he's got his strategic intelligence newsletter out by Paradigm Press, puts it out once a month, puts out other things too that you might want to participate in. But the cornerstone of that is the strategic intelligence, where he kind of puts in the capital markets, the intelligence, because he's very involved. He knows the intelligence service as well. Of course, national security, politics, economics, macro, all of it. Rickards is the best. Go to Rickards, and that's with an S, rickardswarroom.com. You get your discount there, but you can find out all the information on it. That's links you right to Paradigm Press. So make sure you go check it out. The other thing, whether it's credit cards or taxes, I don't want people freaking out about this. If you're wrapped around the axe a little bit on this, it's all a process. And Tax Network USA, the experts that we rely upon, go to tnusa.com. You put in promo code Bannon, you get a discount, but you get to talk to the professionals. If you're getting letters from the IRS, what I strongly recommend is don't engage with the IRS yet before you talk to Tax Network. It's not the end of the world. It's all a process. Take a deep breath. Tax Network USA. Go to tnusa.com/Bannon. Check it out right now. The great Lou Dobbs follows us. We're back tomorrow morning at 10. It's going to be another day. We're going to be on fire. We'll see you back in the War Room then.